and I've been taking these products for over 20 years now. I absolutely love the products. We started back when I was in my late 20s. I would have told you that I was healthy at the time. And but I was working lots of hours. I'm an engineer by degree, and had a career that I was loving my career and really busy. So decided, gee, good nutrition couldn't hurt. Started taking the products and wasn't really sure in the first month whether I saw results or not, so I stopped taking them. And boy, that's when I knew. My husband and I both noticed that we had lots more energy when we were on the products. So we got back to taking the products. And, the things I noticed early on were just that we didn't get sick as often as everybody else. So I just was taking them for prevention, basically. I also had dealt with depression issues throughout, starting, I guess, in late high school, during college. And I found that the products just gave me a better buffer zone for really taking care of that. I was dealing with that just through exercise, and I found that the products really helped a lot. So as the years went by, eventually we started a family about 8 years into taking the products. I used these products as my prenatal. I had great pregnancies, super pregnancies, healthy little boys came out of all that. And just was, again, using it as prevention. Things were going great. Just loved the products. And I guess the biggest thing I would say was interesting with having the kids on the products is that things maybe got diagnosed a little bit later. It turned out over time we discovered that they had asthma. But as long as I was consistent with their products, we did not deal with those asthma issues. When my youngest was about 3 years old, we moved across the country. And I had to put him into a full-time daycare situation based on my job and the way things had changed. And in that situation, I was approached and told that he needed to be evaluated for autism. So that started another journey for us. That was sort of an odd thing for me at the time. I didn't really view him as a classic autism situation, but over time I grew and realized that he did struggle significantly with sensory issues. And I just, I'd listen to lots of Relive calls like this one and hear different stories and talk with people and made some tweaking to what products he was taking and ended up getting fantastic results with his sensory issues. Got to a point where just found a combination of products that just helped him significantly with dealing with all that. And we were able to start progressing down a road where he just did really, really well. We definitely had our challenges, but we never had to go and take the medications that they had kind of threatened us with and stuff, and we were able to address those sensory issues. And I guess when I look at a lot of families, I know a lot of people with sensory kids that I guess my favorite example was we got to have a really good vacation at Disneyland because I always had the products with me, and I found that he really sensoried out with the first day that we were in the park at Disney. And I went to a quiet place and gave him a shake and rejuvenated him, and every night that week we made it to the closing of the park because the products were just able to really help him calm down and settle down with his sensory issues. It was fantastic. As the years have progressed, again, mostly it's prevention that I love these products for, but they've helped my kids with so many things. My 14-year-old, my middle boy, he had always had ankle problems and knee problems and just always complained about pain and stuff. And finally, again, maybe it's a little slow to get things diagnosed because for the most part they do so well, but last fall he actually got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And it was kind of interesting since he'd been in pain for so long. We did try some medication with that, and we're still on that, but it wasn't addressing the problem all the way. So I talked with the doctor. They wanted to change medications, and I said, no, I want to try these Luna-Rich capsules. And so I just put him on the Luna-Rich capsules in addition to his shakes and stepped it up quite a bit. We went for about 6 weeks, and he had fantastic results. The next time I went in after that 6 weeks, the doctor was just amazed. All the swelling she'd been concerned about was not there at the time, and she just felt that it was, he was doing really, really well. She assured me that it had nothing to do with the Luna-Rich, and of course I didn't have to worry about a supplement. We kind of have been able to tell significantly the difference when he takes the Luna-Rich capsules and when he doesn't. So I just feel like is a toolbox for me. I have products that I can turn to that can just help me with the day-to-day issues that my family deals with. And I love these products. I never want to be without them.
Well, that's awesome. Wow, so many results, and I know there's a whole lot more that you could share. Austin, I believe, is the son that dealt with the autism issues, as
Yes.
I recall. And he had some serious anger issues as I think back on his story.
Yes, when he was young, boy, that little guy, he could scream bloody murder for over an hour and not even phase him. It was pretty incredible. And as I found a good, I changed the combination of products a little bit, and there was about a 2-week period. It was interesting. I actually thought that he was getting a little more hyper, and my friend just told me, no, you got to stick with it. You just got to give it some time. And after about 2 weeks, after actually adding the classic in with his Kids Now shake, because that's what made the difference for us, seemed to be that classic, it was like a toggle switch. There was one day the people were over that were working with him, and he got frustrated and went into one of those meltdowns, and it lasted like about 5 minutes instead of an hour. It was amazing. I don't know, I love the product.
That's right. And he dealt with something called PDD, Pervasive Development Disorder?
Yes, his diagnosis is PDD-NOS, which basically seems to be a diagnosis of, there's something quirky about your kid. Here, we'll give you a diagnosis so you can go get some services, which is wonderful because the services have definitely helped. But, I think the biggest changes that I've seen have been with when we made those changes with working with some other people and adjusting his shakes. And also taking gymnastics classes seemed to be like the biggest benefit for him. But he's done all sorts of therapies.
Great. Now, how have the kids done with the asthma?
The asthma is an interesting thing. When we drove across the country, I was really bad about giving him the shakes when we were moving. By the time I got him into that daycare, the first day that I picked up the middle child, they said, man, he sounds like he's going to die when he's taking his nap. What's wrong? And I said, give him a day or two on his shakes, he'll be fine. And he was. If they don't take the shakes, we start to hear wheezing, especially in the cold air months. But if they take their shakes, we don't deal with those symptoms.
That's great. So the Reliv didn't cure him or the kids of asthma, but when they take it, it puts it in check, and you don't have to deal with those issues. That's great.
It absolutely is not a cure. Absolutely not, for us anyway.
Right.
But boy, it helps their bodies deal with the challenges that they have.
Right, exactly. Carolyn, thank you so much. I appreciate you being on and sharing tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, next we're going to have Terry French on with us. Terry's from Ocala, Florida, but he's up in Michigan right now, spending some time up there. And Terry has a very moving testimony. I heard it at a conference one year, and it certainly grabbed me. Terry, we'd love you to come on and share.
All right. Good evening, Bill, and everyone. My name is Terry French. And like you said, I'm one of those privileged people who get to spend 9 months of the year down south where it's warm and gentle, and then 3 months up north in Michigan where it's cooler in the summertime. So I am blessed and I am grateful for that privilege. I was born. My story is this: I was born with polio, and I know that kind of raises an eye because we don't really think about that, but there are about 300 known cases of a child being born with polio. My mom had polio and her 2 sisters, and she was pregnant with me at that time. So I was born with polio, and because of that, I didn't walk at all till I was 6 years old. I had 10 different operations on my legs, spent over a year in the hospital for these consecutive operations, and following that, I did walk, albeit with arm canes and braces to my hips, but at least I wasn't crawling all the time. I kind of progressed through that into my teenage years where I waddled and fell down a lot, but I adapted and, pursuing the teenage adrenaline rushes and everything, I was doing pretty well. But about 17 years ago, And I got to say, I've never run. I've never really walked well. I've functioned and I've adapted, but I've always been in pain. Always on pain meds of some kind. And about 17 years ago, I fell and I broke an ankle, and that triggered post-polio syndrome, which basically left me in agony 24 hours a day for the next 10 years. And during those 10 years, I was daily on 4 to 6 Vicodin a day, or oxycodone, or morphine patches, or a variety of different pain meds. And it really didn't help me. It just took the edge off so that I could function. Well, at the end of that 10-year time, I began bleeding. I began peeing blood. Forgive me, but that's the facts of it. And I went to the doctor thinking I had an ulcer. I owned a couple of businesses, and everybody I knew who was in business had ulcers during that time, and I didn't know what an ulcer was. So I figured I would go to the doctor, and he'd go, "Oh, you've got an ulcer. Stop eating this, or stop drinking this, or take this, or whatever." Instead, he gave me a very grave look and said, your liver is bleeding. And I said, "Well, I can deal with that." And he goes, "No, you can't. You'll die from this. You have to get off the pain meds." And then he pulled my prescription, so I couldn't get anything more. And I went into such a depression, and I was in so much pain, and I just didn't want to live any longer. And I was at that point in my life when I just couldn't go on. And a friend from my church introduced me to Relive. And the absolute truth of the matter is, within 4 weeks of beginning these products, I was pain-free and drug-free for the first time in my life.
Wow.
And it was amazing. And some other things came of that. I was hypoglycemic. I thought it was just my natural makeup. That went away when I stopped having to take those drugs. I couldn't hardly eat anything. I had so many stomach problems and digestive issues, and that went away. And one of the symptoms, or one of the characteristics of polio and post-polio is chronic fatigue. I was tired all the time. In fact, though, I remember sitting in my chair and just praying out loud to God, if I could just have one day when I wasn't exhausted, if I could have just one day when I wasn't in pain all the time, I would do some amazing things. And 5 years went by where I was taking 3 double shakes of the Relive products every single day, enjoying great sleep and exploring all kinds of new foods I wasn't ever able to eat, and having energy. That I remembered sitting in that chair saying, "God, if you could give me one day." And so I did something bizarre. I told my wife, and I took the motorhome, and I went from the Lansing, Michigan area down to the Ocala, Florida area, bought some property. And over the course of 9 months, I built my own house with my own hands. And it's a phenomenal accomplishment for a guy who sat in his chair 23.5 hours a day. And last year, actually it's 2 years already, I finished the house, and I felt like I needed to do something more. And so I investigated and got involved in a hand cycling group. And last year I raced on the national level. These are hand cycles, are trike 3-wheel bikes that you pedal with your arms. And we do 15, 16, 20-mile races over the most unbelievable terrain. And I'm 60 years old, and I was racing on the national level against guys who are 20 years younger than me. And last year, out of 14 races, I always came in the top 5. So what have these products done? They have they've not only saved my life, they've totally changed my life. And brought our family together in such a way, because I was on my way out, and I've just realized my best days are still ahead of me, and it's very exciting what these products have done for me and my family.
Wow. That's an amazing turnaround. Wow, from post-polio, which took you into severe chronic fatigue, and then you were in severe pain, and here you turned it around and built your own house and are racing with these hand cycles. It's wow, what a complete turnaround for you. That's awesome. Terry, thanks so much.
If you don't mind, I'll throw this one little thing in here, Bill. I was listening to these stories a few weeks ago, and I heard someone talk about taking the Linowich capsules and having amazing relief from back pain. And just by nature of the way I walk, I always have aches and pains in my back. I mean, I still have polio, and I still have all the things that were taken from me because of that. But I never thought that, Linowich could do anything for that. And as a matter of fact, I started taking 4 Linowich capsules before bed and 4 when I wake up in the morning, and I have no pain in the morning in my back. Not the stiffness that you're used to, not the morning aches and pains. It's amazing to be 60 years old and be able to get up and amble without that morning ache. So I am praising God and so pleased that I'm still discovering more and more things that Relive does for us. It's amazing.
Great, Terry. Thanks so much for being on tonight and sharing for us.
Very glad.
Thank you. Well, now we're heading over to Illinois. It's my pleasure tonight to have with us Susie Chesna, and certainly she and her family have had some wonderful things happen for them. Susie, we'd love you to share.
Oh, hi, Bill. Thank you so much for inviting me on the call. It's truly a privilege to be able to share the hope with others. My family got on these products 9 years ago, and the reason I was searching for something, I had kids with asthma, and I had a daughter that was very severe that the doctors were talking about putting a trach in her because her asthma attacks were so long and so severe that we needed to find something. And in the course of this, we were on the products a couple of weeks, and I was getting results, and I wasn't looking for results because I was already 47, and I was like, you learn to live with things that you have, And one of the things that I had was I had irritable bowel for 30 years. It was celiac disease when I got on these products. And within 2 weeks, I began to go to the bathroom normally and naturally. And I'll tell you, if that was the only result we would have ever had, we would have all been on these products. But we went on to get more great results. The daughter I was looking for help with the asthma, we were working with the doctors at the University of Chicago, and she was on the product about 7 weeks when they took her in for a treadmill test, and she did it really, really well. She ran 10.5 minutes, going 4.5 miles per hour, and her lung capacity was good. We saw the doctor 2 weeks later, and he said, okay, what did you change in your life to give us these kind of results? Well, I knew nothing about the business, so I just brought the labels in from the cans. And this doctor looked at me very condescendingly as he read through the 72 vitamins, minerals, and amino acids on the label and looked at her and said, really, are you feeling better? And she said, oh, yes, I no longer have chronic fatigue, nor do I have migraine headaches. He was like, wow. He's like, tell me about your migraine headaches. And so she told him, how severe they were, how she usually was vomiting and had to be in a darkened room with no noise. And he said, oh, it's pretty severe. And he said, how about your chronic fatigue? She said, well, I have like 5 sinus infections all through the year, and I'm in bed most of the time. And whenever a cough or a cold comes into the house because I'm on medicine so much, it lasts my siblings 24 to 48 hours. And I'm usually in bed for 2 weeks, but I'm doing really, really well and haven't had any issues whatsoever. And we've also had kids with ADD and ADHD that are did phenomenal within weeks of being on the products. My husband has arthritis. He needed 2 knee replacements, and we put him on 2 more products, and within 2 weeks, the noise with him walking across the room, he didn't make any more noise, and he wasn't in pain anymore. I also have had fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue for since my early 20s, and I'm 55 now, and that went away within about 10 weeks, and that was great because I really suffered with that. I also had a daughter with anorexia who went from 110 pounds. She was a gymnast. We took her out of gymnastics because she had hurt herself. And within 6 months or less, she went down to 79 pounds. And it was pretty scary because I could get nothing into her to eat, and I could only get a Relive shake in her every other day. And today she's doing great. Yes, she did have to be hospitalized. She did have to go through an eating disorder program, but we had her on these products, and they were amazed at this facility that she still had nails. Her hair was not coming out in clumps in her hands, and that her teeth were not falling out because of these Relive products. So that was amazing because most young girls her age that experience anorexia go through those kind of problems. So we've just had amazing results health-wise.
It's awesome. Absolutely awesome. Now, you homeschooled the kids. I don't know whether did you homeschool them all?
Yes. In fact,
7 kids, as I recall.
Yeah, all the way down to number 7, but he's actually going to go to high school this year. Okay. He's going to go to a private Catholic high school this year. And we'll see if it works. But the kids have all done really, really well.
Great. Now, you also shared Relive and actually began a business of Relive, of touching other people's lives. And what happened there?
Oh, it was amazing. I didn't have to knock on anybody's door. I didn't have to call anybody. People came to me because they saw the results. I used to carry a nebulizer with me all the time, to the playground, to the hospital. Not the hospital, excuse me. To the playground, to church, to my daughter with gymnastics, and I stopped carrying the nebulizer around with me. And people were like, "What are you doing? Your kids look great, and we don't see you carrying that nebulizer anymore." I carried it for years with me everywhere I went. And I said, well, we're making and shaking and taking this stuff, and yeah, we feel really great. And they were like, well, can we have some? And a business was born within the first year. I brought in 4 people into the business, had a lot of other people on the products. My best month has been over $3,200. I average around $1,000 to $1,500, depending on how much I can work. But I have to tell you, because of my busy lifestyle, and I was homeschooling the kids, and I babysit a minimum of 60 hours a week with my granddaughter, and still busy running with my kids everywhere. And I can only work 8 to 10 hours a week. Sometimes it's 2 to 3 hours a week, and I still have checks coming in of over $1,000. And that's just amazing to me that I could work so little just by doing phone calls like this, putting people on calls, maybe a computer appointment to show people the Relive website, things like that, and make this kind of money. But, the bottom line, Bill, is it's a moral obligation. Everybody deserves the wealth of health. And, we all know so many people that are suffering with so many different illnesses and ailments that it is a moral obligation to share these products. And that's where the business has gone. And it's like I said, it's not because I work really hard, because I don't, but people need these products. And if the products didn't work, there wouldn't be a business.
That's for sure. Well, Susie, thank you for being on and sharing part of your family story.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks. Well, now we head over to Maine. Patty and I have come to know and love Janet Brown. She's had us a powerful story, and what a joy it is for us to have her with us tonight. So, Janet, we'd love you to share.
Oh, thanks so much, Bill. I'm happy to be on the call. Everyone has an amazing Relive story that takes Relive, and I have an amazing story. What happened for me was, it was almost 20 years ago. I was very healthy. We have 3 kids. I was an aquatics director at the time. I ran a large indoor community swimming pool. And I was very active. I was in great shape. And what I didn't realize is that over time, the chemicals in the pool, it was a very old pool. We closed it while I worked there to build a new one. Nothing worked. And I started getting debilitating headaches, backaches. I developed a major sleep disorder. I started losing weight. Went through several months of testing with my doctor. By the end of that testing, I weighed 99 pounds. My diagnosis was a very extreme case of fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue that my doctor felt was from overexposure to chemicals. I had to leave my job. With that went my income, and I ended up in bed. My pain was debilitating, the headaches, the backaches, migraines. I developed irritable bowel syndrome. I had chemical sensitivities. Not too long after all of this, I was in a small fender bender, and I herniated 2 discs in my neck. And it was so bad that I lost the use of my right arm from nerve damage, and I had to have surgery for 2 herniated discs. And the surgery went great. Woke up from the surgery. I felt fine, except for all my fibromyalgia stuff. The pain in my neck was gone. But what happened, not too long after I recovered from the surgery, is I developed horrific pain in my neck where the surgery had been. I couldn't sit, I couldn't stand. When my daughter went off to college that year, in order to go with her to see her dorm room, I went on a mattress in the back of our station wagon because I couldn't sit. And it just went. It was just one thing after another. I was on Social Security disability. The fatigue was so bad I was in bed most of the time. And during all this time, I was very proactive. I had a very nice life, and I wanted it back. I went through 6 different doctors. I had 2 surgeries, lots of meds that I couldn't name or count. I think I was on 5 at that time. And we spent about $20,000. I worked with alternative physicians, vitamin supplements, vitamin shots. I did an organic macrobiotic diet for a year. I mean, I would have jumped from the moon. I would have done anything. Introduced to Relive and been there, done that, wasn't interested. And thankfully, a woman from Massachusetts came to Maine to do a presentation, and the woman who introduced me, talked me into going. And I dragged myself there, and I met the people, heard the stories, and that was it. I said, okay, 90 days. I'll make a 90-day commitment. I'll work with the woman who introduced me, and I just thank God every day I did that. It took me 9 weeks to see any changes, and that was the beginning of the end. Once I started getting the results, I couldn't keep my mouth shut, and the woman who introduced me was new. Her aunt, who was in her 70s, had introduced her, so I knew nothing. But my second month sharing Relive, I was one of the top 40 distributors in the United States, and it just so happened that we would be going to a conference that next month, so I got front row seating at my first conference, just a wonderful experience. Within a year, I was the number 6 distributor. I earned a $1,000 bonus that month. My husband and I went on, I think we've been on half a dozen trips. The trips are amazing. I earn a bonus every month. My highest income in 1 month has been over $9,000. And then, life kind of comes along and things happen and you deal with it. So a little over 5 years ago, my mom had Alzheimer's, and we needed to take care of her. And we did, for 2.5 years, we took care of my mom. We got someone in the day, and we did nights and dinners, nights, weekends. And we took care of my mom. And so basically for 2.5 years, I was a caretaker. I was sleeping at the house when my mom passed away in her home, which was our goal. And then we started with my dad. So for the past 2.5 years, we took care of my dad. And my dad in his bedroom, and I was sleeping there again. He passed away. And couldn't do that if you had a real job, so to speak. I could go to my parents' house at the drop of a hat. And so basically for 5 years, I did caretaking, and I still get a great Relive check every month. The other things, just quick, that have happened, I had a hysterectomy taking Relive, and my OBGYN who did the surgery she just shook her head and she said, I'm amazed. I'm absolutely amazed. I mean, I was up walking the halls because I couldn't sit in bed, and she had never seen any of her patients who had the surgery. I had to do that. Broke my back 4 years ago, and it was horrific. And I'm now 63, and I don't know that I broke my back. And again, my husband has avoided 2 knee surgeries. He has perfect blood work. It's a gift. It's a gift. I take care of we have 4 grandchildren. I take care of my grandchildren. Now, all of these things, I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't function. I could barely take care of myself. So the fact that I was able to take care of my parents, take care of my grandchildren, and I have a life, and I have a wonderful life. I will always be grateful for Relive.
That's wonderful. Powerful story. What a turnaround in your life. And so appreciate you, Janet. Thanks for being on tonight and sharing part of your story with us.
You're very, and yes, it is part. For all of us, it's only part.
I could give you a lot of time.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Bill.
Okay. Well, I have one more guest for us tonight, and it's a real pleasure for me to get to introduce you to Presidential Director, Ambassador Janice Mellema from South Dakota. Big title. For those of you who don't know what that means, she not only has had some really good results with Relive, but she's turned around and reached out and made a difference in lots of people's lives. And it's indeed our pleasure and our honor to have Janice share with us tonight. So, Janice, we'd love you to do that.
Well, thank you, Bill. And can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go right ahead.
Oh, okay. Thanks so much for asking. Well, I started looking at different things in my life because I had been diagnosed 12 years ago with a skin cancer called melanoma. And I had it taken off because it was just itchy and I just didn't like it. And they said, we better send this in. And so it turned out to be that melanoma class or stage 2. So I had caught it early enough before it spread. I didn't have to do any chemo or radiation, but I knew I needed to build up my immune system. And so a few months after that, a friend called me about Relive and got started. It's been 12 years. I have not had a reoccurrence of that, which I'm very grateful for. And along the way, some things I was just learning to live with. Being a nurse, I thought that was just going to be it. A lot of allergies, sinus infections, back problems. Being a nurse 35 years of a lot of lifting at hospitals and nursing homes really wrecks the back. But it was getting started on the Relive products. I saw my allergies improve, the sinus infections associated with that come down to once now in 12 years. So that's been a big relief, even during the seasons where all the pollen is around. Just doesn't bother me like it used to. And the back pain took a little time. I was doing 3 shakes a day and 4 or 5 months for me for seeing that pain go away. And it was because of the stories that I was hearing that I knew it would work for me if I just gave it the time it needed, and sure enough, it did. And here I am now into my 60s, and my bone density is normal for my age, and keeping up with 5 grandkids and all those ball games. And my grandkids range in age from 10 to 20, and so all the ball games and everything, I'm able to do it. And when I started looking at helping some other people, I was kind of skeptical of the business. However, I had started at the master affiliate level because I just wanted to get started with a lot of product on hand because it was already helping me. I knew I was going to be taking it. And when I started helping other people, the income started coming in that very first month. And so that was surprising to me. I was burned out on home businesses prior to that because I had just tried so many that just didn't work for me. And I find out now, I think it was because the products just weren't helping everybody like Relive is. And so when I started working part-time around my full-time job at the hospital, I was earning a couple $1,000 a month. And after a year of that, I thought, what would happen if I would put those 40 hours into Relive? So I quit my job to work with Relive full-time and did that. And I'm so glad I had, because that's when the business really started to grow. Several people had joined me in the business, and I was averaging around $5,000 a month, and it just kept growing. And a couple of years after that, my husband passed away. Emotionally, I had to step aside a little bit. However, I did not stop working the business. I still kept working with all the people that were in my downline, and I remarried now, so things are looking like I'm going to get started back to the level I did before. But all through that, that residual income that Relive talks about, that's real. I've never missed a check and never missed a bonus now since the first month I started. And so I'm very grateful for what it has helped me with, not only physically, but with a business, not having to worry about all those bills because of the income coming in all the time has been such a blessing. So I for sure don't want to go back to feeling like I used to, so it'll always be a part of my life. So that's kind of a quick summary of my story.
There you go. Wow. So 35 years as a nursing background.
Yes.
And so how did you share Relive while you were nursing? How did that go?
Well, at the job, it just doesn't work too well.
Right.
But I found out that I could say something real subtle, and said, well, if you're really interested in getting rid of that, just give me a call when we get home, and I can tell you about something that helped me. And because, of course, I couldn't do any of that on the job.
Right.
And I had also been introduced to so many people during doing other network marketing companies that they were unhappy with what they were doing too. So I had been in contact with them and talking to some of them, and so they joined me also. And it just I have lived in a very small town and 1,200 people, and so.
So you
started
weren't
working with
exactly
people
an ideal
out of state
candidate.
that I knew and relatives, and it just started to grow across the nation and international. So that was just a lot of fun.
In your bio, you said you were a person who needed some developing. So what did that mean, Janice?
Oh, that might take a little bit of explaining, but I was a very shy person.
Mm-hmm.
I had a hard time talking to other people. New people, but my sponsorship line really just kept me plugged into the stories and developing me, I guess is what I would say. I knew what to do, but I just needed a little push to keep doing it. And so as that happened, that's, I guess, one of the reasons why we reached ambassador in 16 months. And a few months after that, presidential, as that month the income went to $13,000, and it just really shocked me. But I found out there's just a whole lot of people who want to feel better, and just as many that need an income. And so it's just a matter of finding who.
Great. So Relive has a tremendous support system. There's so many things that I love about Relive. I love the fact that there are thousands of people who share with one another with no money involved, just have that passion to reach out and make a difference in other people's lives. But we need people who will distribute the product and build a business. And there's a whole support network of people who work together and help one another out. And you had a whole support team that helped you develop and grow, and you've grown a very successful business. And so the support team is wonderful.
That's right.
Yes. It's nice to be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. And that is certainly one of the things we have in Relive. A lot of people get a business of some kind, and they find it's, everything depends on them. And in Relive, there's this huge support team of people who care, who want to make a difference in other people's lives, and we just work together. And what a joy it is for us to have that. Well, Janice, it was certainly a pleasure. I mean, here you are in South Dakota in a little town and shy, and here you've built a very serious income with Relive. And so anybody can do this. Isn't
that amazing? I'm still amazed at that.
Yeah. I found the people who are most successful in Relive are the people who have a heart to make a difference in other people's lives. And so when we get the attention off ourselves and just focus on reaching out and helping other people, all of a sudden this Relive business starts to grow. And it can go all kinds of places. There's no telling how far and how fast this thing can fly. But Janice, thank you for joining us and sharing for us tonight.